How you doing, everyone? NRL Fantasy chat here before preseason. I just want to get in as early as I can. Obviously, I'm not sure if the people I want to see this will see it. I hope they do. And if you know anyone in the NRL, I don't have any contacts there myself. Maybe if you see this, you want to send it to Mr. Casual Athlete, who obviously does some videos with them as well, Talking League, any of the guys that have done videos with NRL. Maybe they have some contacts, or if you know anyone, or you can just share it. That would be really cool because I want to see NRL Fantasy have the best game possible. And it is my favorite game. Obviously, prefer it to Supercoach. I've played this all my life. I want to see it succeed with the growth of the game. And with the growth of NRL Fantasy is going to see some more eyeballs as well. And we want to make, in my thoughts, we want to make this game as inclusive for everyone as possible. You want to make it easy enough so that anyone can play and enjoy it without getting too overwhelmed with how many concussions, with how many, the lack of trades or squad size, all these different things. So both myself and the private group, I'd opened it up to those guys to give me their thoughts on some things that they think could be an awesome addition to make NRL Fantasy in 2025 the most perfect game possible. So what was really cool is we did see a few changes a couple of years ago now. We've seen 2 years of that same product, and the game has changed along with it. Obviously, the way it's played, with concussions, with lots of injuries, obviously it continues to increase and be a massive factor in our game. But the goal here is, I just think, because NRL Fantasy is played by a lot of fans, people who might have only watched the one game per week, likely the team they follow, they now tune in to 2+ games every single week. And a lot of people watch every single game just so they can watch their fantasy players. So personally, I think we want to be able to promote engagement in the NRL space. And NRL Fantasy is just such an awesome way to do that, in my opinion, because of those extra eyeballs and people talking about NRL and spending time watching more of the NRL 360. They're engaging with NRL Physio. They're engaging with everyone, from reporters in the space to getting late mail and all these types of things. And I think that side of the game has been run incredibly well in recent years as well. Is that late mail and getting things from direct reporters. You think of Mr. Tui from the Knights and how much good oil we got from him this year amongst plenty of other reporters there. So I think the space is getting so much better. It's growing, and NRL Fantasy is continuing to grow as well. But we've proposed a couple of potential changes that I think can add to the game and add to the the spectacle of you've got guys that can come in and be a bit more inclusive there, that are a bit more of the casual fan, that will spend sort of 10 to 15 minutes on their team each week. And then you've got people like myself, and there's plenty of others that spend as much time as myself on the game in the 10 to 20 hours a week of their, this is their hobby, and they absolutely love it. So it's going to be good for both, I think. You've got the guys that are going to put their effort and time in that should do really well, and you can also bring the casual players along to have a good time as well. Because too often we see these casual guys come in, they spend that little bit of time in their week. They quit after playing for a few weeks when there's too many injury suspensions. The bye schedule now, since that has come in, this is obviously when we made changes to the game of NRL Fantasy, and that just makes it harder again. So that's where a lot of skill is involved as well. That's for sure. But as I said, those who put in the extra work will still get the spoils at the end. But we want to bring everyone along for the ride and for the long haul there. So I really just think we want to be able to keep these people in the game for the whole season, whilst making it a super fun game to watch and a game to score off for the guys that play NRL Fantasy as a living, basically. Spent that much time on it. But this one was come from me there, the squad changes. I think the easiest way to do this, we've got, if you want to compare Fantasy and Supercoach, there's differences between the two. Supercoach has a 25-man squad. Fantasy has a 21. I think 25 is a little bit too much. I think it does make it a little bit easier to obviously form a team to get the full 17 on the park each week. That's very much catering to the casual audience, because they can always field a team without sort of too much effort, especially through the bye period and stuff. But 21 can be really, really tough. You're seeing a lot of teams having 14, 15 on the park at certain times, and even in weeks where it wasn't, strict buy period, but 14, 17, 20 was really tough this year. So I think proposing one extra player in your squad is going to be helpful. So it just means one extra emergency player would be my call there. And the rationale behind it is with 11-day stand-downs, for concussions being a feature in the modern game, along with other injuries, suspensions, the bye weeks, you can very easily be short of the 17 players or short of position on field. And that's obviously the tough one. If you don't have that player on, if you have a DNP on field, you have to get someone who replaces them in that spot. It's not just your next emergency as well. So that's another thing that can be tough. Whereas that extra man, you could have an extra dual position player. That could be super helpful in your side for sure and easier to navigate. Number 2 there is during the bye period is when many casual players stop playing as they haven't planned enough, of course, because they haven't spent as much time as what others have. An extra bench addition just makes it easier to get the 13 on the park and allows some more variation across all teams, having that extra player, I think. That's for sure. We do see that a fair bit in Supercoach. Is the obviously with the 25-man squad, you can have a greater variation across teams and therefore just bigger scoring differences as well week to week. And you could be sort of 300 or 400 points behind and have a cracking week there and make up 150, 200 spots, which I think in fantasy we see that a couple of times through the year if you have a few guys that get 80s and 90s and a few other popular guys go low. But I think that extra man will help that a little bit more as well, which is obviously a little bit more fun. Knowing that you can come back or you can have crazy weeks or the bad week as well as on the other side of it. But obviously allows more flexibility as well between positions on field and bench when you can do some looping and all those fun things as well for the guys that put in that extra effort. The other option with the squad changes would be to have your first 13 players on the field and the interchange bench, obviously, as your scoring players in round 13, 16, and 19. So instead of having it exactly on field, it's just your your first 13 from your starting and interchange. So you could have 12 players in your starting team that fit, and you don't have one for a center. You then have your first interchange is going to be your guy that plays as your 13 player. I think that's another one that could make it a little bit easier for people to play, but it also creates some strategy for the guys that have played longer term as well. The one I think is going to be the hardest one to implement. I think these ones here aren't too difficult, just to add that extra man for sure, and potentially that the first 13 players doesn't seem too hard. Again, I'm not a tech guy, but something that I think will be a little bit easier than what I'm suggesting here, and that's the concussion and the early injury replacement. So a few guys have mentioned this one. I've heard a lot of content creators mention this one across both codes there. But this is the way I've written it. If a player is removed from the game within the first 10 minutes due to concussion or injury, right? So they're removed from the game, they don't come back. It's a Cat 1, they do an ACL, something like that or shoulder, whatever it is, in the first 10 minutes, they should count as a DNP and a suitable replacement comes in with normal DNP rules applying. So if it's a center that starts, Ruben Garrick, for example, he gets a concussion in the first 5 minutes, which happened 3 times last year. You then get a center. He counts as non-playing. You don't get his points. You obviously get his price drop. He's out next week, whatever it is, right? But in that case, you would get a center from your interchange, the first center from your interchange or emergency. And in the case that you don't have a center replacement, it is what it is, unfortunately. Yeah, and the other one is if it does just say it's a week where it's first 13 and you only have 13 players. In that case, you would just get his score because there's no one else to replace him. So maybe you can put it in place somewhere. Whereas if you don't have someone to replace him, you just get his score. Something simple like that could be a call. It's obviously I think could be harder to do, but that's my thoughts on that one. For anyone who played my end of season finals fantasy, then you would have seen some of the scoring changes that I've proposed as well. So the goal with scoring changes is to make the small change for viewers to not get annoyed by sort of silly missed tackles is the big one for me. They're scored the same as an error or a penalty, which I think is pretty wild, and reward attacking stats a little bit more so viewers can get some extra excitement when their players do some good attacking stats. So the first one here is making and missing a tackle should be the same points. I don't know why missing a tackle is way worse than making a tackle, because not every made tackle is the same. For example, a third man in. not every missed tackle is worth an error score, in my opinion, because he could be a Mitch Kenny and these types of guys that are out there, Reed Marnie, out there creating line speed. They're slowing down the attacking player with their missed tackle. They hit and they don't stick, obviously, but you're hitting them and then they're moving into the other defenders who are coming up and continuing that line speed. So for them to get a -2 in that one, I think is pretty tough. And it should just be a -1 on both points. And, someone mentioned, for a one-on-one tackle, maybe making it 2 points. You definitely could, but I just think rewarding and, not killing you on the other side both ways is worth it, because you'll have the odd one that's a point for a third man tackle, but if you have a bad missed tackle or a good missed tackle, there's two different types. There's one that leads to a try. There's one that leads to just creating good defense, right? They're both scored the same, whereas same with the one-on-one tackle along with the third man in. Just both scored the same. Makes it easy, but you don't miss out on the good side and also the bad side. Number 2, I think an offload to ground should not be the same score as a line break assist. This is the biggest one, in my opinion, that needs to be changed. All the other scoring changes, I think, are pretty solid apart from this one and the line break assist. All the rest are completely fine. But obviously, I'll mention some small changes I'd like to propose. But I do propose that changing offload to hand to 3 and an offload to ground to 1 would be a good start. And then I'm looking at changing the line break assist as well, because a line break assist is worth a lot more. If you have a nice short ball, the amount of times that Tohu Harris drops, back on the inside short ball to AFB or something like that, and they go through and he gets 2 points for that, like if they don't go on to score the try, I think is a travesty. Whereas you can throw an offload out the back, the guy catches it and makes 0 meters, or he goes, like, you throw it back 5, he makes 2 on that. So you actually lose 3 meters on the play. It's not a actually good NRL play, whereas the line break assist is obviously a beautiful play. So that's my thoughts there. And then adding to point 2, attacking stats should increase to demonstrate their value. They make a big difference to a team winning or losing, obviously, there. So a line break assist, I propose as 4. So now it's above an offload, which is nice. But then you bring a line break up to 6. You bring a try assist to 8 from 5. I think it's obviously a really important play. And then you have a try, which is 12. And if you compare that now with, you've got turnover tackles, you've got try savers. If you put them together plus the tackle, that's a 10-point play. So I think a try assist with that line break assist there should be a 12 as well. So we're promoting attacking play. If you manage to pull off a really nice try saver, again, a lot of the times with the try saver, it's a guy that's, you've got a hand on him. You're not really affecting the play. They've bobbled it over the line or they've stepped out, all these things, and you get that 10 points there. Same on the try assist side. There might be a try assist that's really simple. You just throw it to them and they run over and score with no one in front of them. Again, there's also hectic try assists. There's also hectic try savers. So either way, get them very similar. And tries are obviously super important in this game. So you get that number up as well. And you're really promoting then buying in your fantasy team attacking players as well. It fits the attacking players, this side of it. But then the guys that are working really hard through the middle, if they're going to make 45 tackles, miss 7, they're now getting 7 points back to their total. So it helps them in that way. And then the attacking players get helped out a little bit. It's nowhere near as crazy as Supercoach with 17 for a try and 12 for assists and all the rest. Line breaks 10. It's lower than that. And it's really solid for the base stat guys as well. And then the fourth one, with that one then, the tacklers get rewarded, as I said, with less negatives. And then number 4, I've got there as a 2-point field goal. It's worth exact same as a normal field goal at the moment. So they've been able to change that with offloads, 1 to hand, 1 to ground, as being different points totals. But I do think that a 2-point field goal, worth an extra 2 points, I think is pretty fair on that one. Trading side of things. With the trading, I think having the ability to update your trade if the player has not yet played, rather than the trade being currently locked if one player in that trade has played. So if your person you're trading out has already played, you can't update the player you're trading in at this stage. And the same on the other way. If the bloke you've traded in, that's basically how it's going to work. So you want to be able to, if you haven't traded the guy in, be able to move him back out for someone else if the money works, would be really, really cool. Because I think it leaves more people a little bit less frustrated with laid outs and stuff, if you can do this, would be really nice. And that's something that Supercoach has changed in the last few years to be able to get that right. I think that helps people with that frustration, as I said. And it's a bit easier to navigate for most people because there are a lot of laid outs. Guys are racing the clock. There's a lot of injuries, all that type of stuff. Being able to do this across the weekend is very, very helpful in my opinion. Past season results. A lot of people have asked to see past season results, and you can't do that. I can personally because I'm videoing it all, but for those that don't, you have to write it all down at the end of the season. Thankfully now there's footy stats, footystatistics.com, which is awesome now, but it only has our last year currently. So it'd be really, really cool to see on the the login that you have, if you can go through and check your history for every year and the scores you had, rankings, all that kind of stuff. On the NRL Fantasy desktop version, doesn't have to be on the app, just on the desktop. That would be really cool. I think hopefully they should be able to maintain those stats, even if it's from this year on. I think that would be really cool as well. So thanks to the guys that mentioned that one. Captaincy. This one's the interesting one. I don't know how it's going to work, but we had really the main issue last year was the Tedesco captaining in round 13. Things were all looking fine, and then Dylan Edwards is out, and Teddy gets brought in outside of the squad. He wasn't even in the squad into play Origin, and that meant that Teddy was captain and he was locked into people traded him in and captained him. And so obviously in that scenario, if you've captained him, you can't trade him out. If you haven't captained him and the games haven't played yet, then you could obviously reverse that trade and get him back out. But a lot of people, even if they didn't captain him, they weren't able to reverse that trade. So having something where you can be a little bit fluid, whether it's just in those scenarios where the captain has just been ruled out for circumstances like that, could be helpful. I think this is going to be the hardest one to do. If you were to have them fluid like it is in Supercoach, I think that it would open up a bit of a captaincy loophole, which I don't think works in fantasy, because in Supercoach you get the lowest score on your bench, whereas in fantasy you don't. It's like for like replacement. So yeah, I'm not sure how that would work, but it's just something I just wanted to mention, which a lot of people have asked me to sort of mention on this video. So yeah, let me know what you guys think on that one. NRL Fantasy, higher ups. I'm not sure how that one works, but just wanted to mention that, just especially for that example. Like it didn't affect us too much. There was one there where I think Hines was out, and I got a very low VC score and stuff. Like, is what it is on that one. A few people mentioned like, VC is pretty arbitrary at the moment. If for the most part it doesn't really do anything. But it's really in that scenario. So I don't know how you work that one out, but yeah, it's something. I think that's mainly everything, guys. But just to finish off, prizes. I know a lot of people have mentioned there just probably a larger first prize. I don't think it matters too much on the lower prizes, but I think that just brings a few more people into the game. It gets a few more eyeballs on NRL Fantasy, and it's just cool. You're playing for something really nice. Obviously, it doesn't have to be too crazy. It's the one thing that I don't think we have in NRL Fantasy on Supercoach is that nice big prize. So hopefully there's a sponsor out there that wants to jump on and help out on that front. But I think you should be able to make it back NRL Fantasy on some fresh eyeballs alone, and with the ability to market that a little bit more and get as many people playing as possible, because it's on NRL, it's NRL.com. A lot of people use that app, that desktop version, Safari version, whatever you want to go, Google version. As well. So my personal opinion, NRL Fantasy is the best game. I've absolutely loved it as a kid, since I was a kid, and I want to see it continue to flourish into the future. We have the best community that deserves the best, and I hope this video document, I'll send that out as well, can be seen by the higher ups. I'll pop it in the Discord. Someone can you can share it around. I'd love to discuss the game as well with you guys and be able to be a part of helping it continue to grow. I'm in this as much as you guys. And love it as much as you guys. So as the NRL grows its viewership, I think so should NRL Fantasy. So to keep it super simple, guys, Fantasy Jamie, the new YouTube, the new face of it. I'm out. I'll see you in preseason in late December, guys. Share this around, get it around to anyone who works for NRL.com. That would be awesome. And I'd love to sit down and speak to them about how we can continue to improve this amazing game. I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to see all of you guys next season for 2025. It's going to be an amazing one. I'm going to continue to work on things and grow myself. And let's get out there and win this comp, eh? See you guys.